Oh yeah, here we go.
Here we are. Okay. All right, folks, I think we'll go ahead and start. My name is Bruce Bustamante. I'm the president and CEO of the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to yet another virtual Make It Monday forum. We've got a great program for you today. And also want to wish you a belated Happy Mother's Day. Hopefully you folks had a chance to call your mothers, send flowers, your grandmothers, remember your mothers, and also for those that are mothers, I'm sure, hopefully you had a great day. And certainly it's one that I certainly look forward to each year. But again, Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about where we're at with Citywide Cleanup. And this is Citywide Cleanup Month. And the dates this year are from May 4th through the end of the month. And we have a fresh supply of orange bags. You can pick up your bags at Fred Meyer stores, also at the Anchorage Chamber office. So we have bags available. So we'll just make sure and give us a call if you want to come by and pick them up. And also later today, they'll be available at Fred Meyer. So again, it's time to grab the bags and spruce up our city. Next, I just want to talk just briefly about our military appreciation events. Those normally occur for us in June, and those have been postponed till late July for the picnic, and then the military appreciation luncheon hosted by the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce will be on August 10th. More information to come. The date is a bit fluid on the picnic. We don't know about admissibility, you know, with the base and where we're going to be at as far as social gatherings. But those are the plans right now. Not canceled, but just postponed. Also a reminder that today the municipality of Anchorage moves into the phase 2 of return to work. This is the recovery stage, and there are restrictions in place for that, but this is officially the start of phase 2. For more information on that, go to the Anchorage Chamber website to our coronavirus update page, and then go to Safe Anchorage. And what you'll see will be up-to-date information on the restrictions involved for retail, critical, non-critical services, gatherings, food and dining services, all of that. So we move into the next phase of what we hope to be a normal mode of operation here, but it'll take a while for us to get there. But at least we're moving into phase 2, and we appreciate everyone's work in getting us to this point. So with that, I'd like to also thank our sponsor, Alaska 529. You never know what's going to spark your child's curiosity. Alaska 529 can help you prepare. Save in Alaska, study anywhere. Great investment in your kids' college careers. So Alaska 529, and thank you, Tito Munoz, for being a sponsor. And so with that, we're going to have a main presentation today, which will showcase our summer 2020 Municipality of Anchorage construction projects and overall work of construction projects around the city. So we're going to get a more detailed update later on, and I'll be doing more in-depth introductions. The presentation will be made by Diana Rotkis, Central Region Deputy Director of Alaska DOT and Public Facilities, and Kent Kohlhase, Director of Project Management and Engineering for the Municipality of Anchorage. But prior to that, we always like to piece in a member update and a member presentation. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Laura Sturdivant, Financial Advisor for Merrill Lynch Wealth Management and a very active person in our Young Professionals group. So Laura, take it away.
Absolutely, thank you, Bruce. And let me share my screen real quick. So first things first, I want to apologize for not having my tooth in. Last year, I fell and slipped on the floor, and I realized that the floor always wins, and it lost a tooth. And if anyone's lost a tooth before, it's a pain in the butt to get replaced. So thank you for that. But yeah, I am a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch, and I hold on one second, gotta fix my screen real quick. I'm a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch, and a self-proclaimed chamber groupie. I'm involved, like Bruce said, in the YPG and in the ambassador program. And I want to throw a shout out to the chamber for their coronavirus response. Their website has been awesome. Definitely check it out if you haven't. I like to use it for the restaurants that are still open and try to throw some support to other chamber members. So I was born and raised in Minnesota, and then I went to the Air Force Academy and graduated from there and commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Air Force and became an intelligence officer. Through my duty locations and whatnot, I went to a couple different places first, but then eventually landed up here in J. Bear. That's how I discovered Alaska. And I realized it's like Minnesota, but with mountains. I can see the mountains right outside my window right up there. And so I decided to get out and make Alaska my home because I love it up here so much. And I found financial advising to be very similar to Intel. It's a lot of, if you look at what you need to do, for example, why is this not scrolling? There we go. If you, of everything that needs to happen, it's how Merrill Lynch treats it is we don't look at you as like a portfolio. We look at you as a person. And what's really awesome is we have what's called the goals-based wealth management. So what we sit down and do is we basically interview you to find out your everything you want to do in your life. So it's not just a good conversation. It's more about having a roadmap planner. So think about when you're making a road trip, and some people are a little bit more laissez-faire about their road trips, and we'll figure it out as we figure it out. And then the more complicated ones you have, for example, when I moved up here, I had to get, the milepost book and plan it out and plan my stops to make sure I wouldn't run out of gas. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing, what I do as a financial advisor with you, with your life goals. We look at all these different aspects that could impact your life. And regardless of whatever goal you have, there's probably a financial aspect to that. And that's my job, to make sure that I am catching those and helping address those with you. And so what we do is we sit down, we learn those goals, we learn your priorities, we rank them. And then we also look at where you're at right now. And then we put this into a really cool product called a Wealth Outlook. And what comes out is a report that will tell you how likely you are to reach all those goals, how likely you are to fund those goals. And I can play around with it of saying, hey, you may be conservatively invested right now, but if we increase your risk level a little bit and get you a little bit more aggressively invested, you're more likely to reach your goals, or you can reach your goals, that type of thing. And then we'll have a discussion on whether you can actually take that in. And like I said, with each of those goals, we talk about like, what's your target value? So one that normally has a target value is either home or like a retirement lifestyle. I want to have this amount. What's your time horizon for that? Like, some people want to buy a home right now. Some people want to wait. Retirement lifestyle for me is a little bit farther away, but for my mom, it's right now. We look at your risk tolerance. So for example, I can take a little bit more risk with my retirement lifestyle, whereas my mom, who's right there, full retirement, can't. So we're going to be we're going to invest her a little bit more conservatively than me, who can ride the waves, particularly the waves that we're having right now in the market. And then priorities. So for example, I have a client that really wants to get into scuba diving, but it's not necessarily a priority of his. So we put that as aspirational. Whereas paying for his kids every year, that's an essential priority. So we put that one above it. So we make sure that those goals are funded first, the ones that are essential. And then the aspirational ones are like, yeah, it'd be fun, it'd be cool to do this, but if it doesn't happen, it's not going to make or break their lives. This is a huge slide for right now. We're probably closer to like the depression level down here in the lower area. We've already hit the bottom. And this is, where financial advisors make their bread and butter is everyone, whatever your decisions are, not just investment, but in general, will go through this euphoria, this cycle of, wow, I feel great about this decision. And sometimes, man, I really should not have done that. But that's my job as a financial advisor, to be here, to be the way my uncle, who's a successful financial advisor, says it is, I'm your yin to your yang. I am your optimist to your pessimist, and your pessimist to your optimist. So as we hit the market downturn in March, I was on the phone calling all my clients and talking to them of being like, hey, it's okay. Like, we have time. A lot of them had time to ride this wave. We talked about it. And those that didn't have the time to ride it, like my mom that I keep bringing up, I had her already conservatively invested anyway. So the impact of that was mitigated. And so of the market downturn. And so that's what I'm here for, is to make sure that when you're investing at the right time, because regardless, no matter how practical of a person you are and how much you try to base your decisions on logic, there is an emotional element to your decision. And that is my job, is to make sure that that emotion is geared in the right direction. And maybe sometimes I tell you it's not the right decision to make at this time, which sucks. And I hate having those conversations. But it's what's needed to make sure that you're online, you're on track to reach your goals. And so how we do this is, I love this slide. It's a lot, but this is like what I call the wheel of truth. This is because Merrill Lynch is a wholly owned subsidiary of Bank of America. We can provide anything, near anything you want financially to you, other than healthcare or health insurance. But whatever you need, if you need some personal finances, if you need to borrow some money, if you need to grow your wealth, protect your wealth, that type of thing, we have this wheel of opportunities. And this is even, completely encompassing everything. But so, for example, we worked with a lot of small businesses to increase their liquidity recently because of the market downturn and COVID. And so we reached in here and we took a couple different products out and we applied it to them. So the big thing is, I like this slide because I want to highlight at the bottom left down here where it says advice, guidance, education. That's really age. That's what I really am here for, is I provide you advice, I provide you guidance, and I provide you education. I'm here to be part of your brain trust, the beehive of whatever decisions you want to make, the people that you instantly reach out to being like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm here as that sounding board to be like, well, maybe you should think about this, or like, man, that's a great idea. Let's go figure out how to do this, that type of thing. I like the latter, obviously. The former sometimes happens. And so this is the really big thing, is that we are here to help you achieve whatever you want. There's a lot of people, like myself included, that don't think that we're Merrill clients, because when you think Merrill Lynch, I know the perception is typically, oil moguls and people with millions of dollars. That's not true. That is simply not true. We work with everyone. And what I would like to do, as I'm scrolling through these required disclosures so I don't go to jail and make my mother proud that I don't go to jail, is what I would like to provide to every chamber member is the opportunity to have a free portfolio analysis and a wealth outlook done for you guys. So if you guys want to reach out, I'll throw my stuff in the chat of how to contact me, but reach out, and it's just proofreading. You don't have to change your advisors, that type of thing. But I'll provide some analysis for that. And then there's also an event coming up in June where we're going to have a market outlook. So if you'd like to attend that, also reach out to me. Thank you. And Bruce, I'll pass it back over to you.
Okay, Laura. Well, thank you. Thanks for that informational update on investment. So now at this time, I'd like to get into our program discussing one of the major seasons of Alaska, and that's construction season. So first I'd like to, and I understand Kent will go first, but I'm going to invite and introduce Diana first, then Kent. Diana Rotkis recently celebrated 30 years with the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. She currently serves as the Deputy Director of the Central Region, and her passion is solving problems to clear the way for her colleagues to get their jobs done. We all need people like Diana. She started with the department in 1990 with the Division of Planning in Juneau, transferring to Anchorage in 1993 to work with the state equipment fleet, which manages the state's vehicles, equipment, including the Operation and Replacement Fund. Prior to joining the Regional Director's office, she served as the SEF Fleet Manager. She lives in Anchorage with her husband and 3 rescue cats. Now I'd like to introduce Kent Kohlhase, Director of Project Management and Engineering, and he's been with the municipality for 12 years. Prior to becoming a director, he served as the Design Section Manager and Acting Municipal Engineer with the municipality. His duties in that position included managing the engineering design group, overseeing survey right-of-way acquisitions, and Materials Lab. From 2013 to 15, he held the position of Private Development Manager, where Kent worked directly with developers and engineers to guide the design and construction of subdivisions. Before joining the MOA, Kent spent 22 years with the United States Forest Service, Chugach National Forest, as a forest engineering staff officer and as an acting district ranger. Among other positions, Kent has more than 25 years of experience as a project engineer, team leader, and engineering manager. So with that, I would like to introduce Kent to go ahead and get the presentation started.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Bruce. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So I want to thank everybody for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. Many of you may have attended similar presentations that were put on by Jerry Hansen, the previous director of project management and engineering. He retired in September, and I was fortunate to be selected to fill his position. So again, glad to be here. I think, so we are, the municipality right now is not allowed to use Zoom, so I'm calling in and I'm working with some technology you may or may not have heard of. It's called paper. So you'll hear some paper rustling here as I switch through my slides, but I'll try not to make too much noise. So with that, I think my presentation should be on the screen with the title and my picture. If we could have the next slide, please. So this is a map of the, every year, PM&E works with DOT, Anchorage Water and Wastewater, and other agencies to, we normally meet in person internally with all those agencies just to set the groundwork for the upcoming construction season so we can identify where there may be conflicts, where there may be efficiencies, and take advantage of those. So this is a map, and I presume that this presentation will be available to folks afterwards. If not, I can sure email it to people. This is a map of planned projects for 2020 for PM&E, DOT, and Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility, both their capital projects and some of their private development projects. I'd like to take just a quick minute here. I won't go through the projects on there, but I would like to take a quick minute just to let all of you know. I also attended an Associated General Contractors Agency Day meeting about a month ago, and it was similar to this, but it was updating the members of AGC on the upcoming work, and that was attended. Presenters there were ADOT, PM&E, the congressional delegation, City of Fairbanks, and one other entity. And so I have a larger presentation there that outlines all of the proposed work for the municipality. It's PM&E, AWU, the Parks Department, Solid Waste Services, the Port, and I'm probably missing somebody, but I would be glad to share that with folks as well. It's a program in the range of $80 to $100 million, depending on how effectively we're able to get projects on the street this year. But again, I'd be glad to share that. You could reach out to the chamber, and I can provide that to them, and they can distribute it as folks might be interested in seeing it. Next slide, please. So for PM&E, we handle essentially the surface transportation infrastructure for municipal roads, not state rights of way, but municipal roads. So we do road construction, reconstruction, upgrades, all the way from fully tearing out and replacing a road just to an asphalt resurfacing or overlay. We handle drainage, pedestrian improvements, lighting, traffic calming, and safety on all municipal roads. Next slide, please. For folks who've attended these before, you may be aware of this, but I thought it might be informational just to talk about where our projects come from. We have a standing 6-year CIP list, a capital improvement project list that's updated every year. And that project is updated and informed by several sources of information. I think primarily we get our problem streets from street maintenance. They contact us at all times during the year, bring us out to look at problems. We look at whether it's a solution that can be solved in the short term with maintenance or whether it would require a capital project. So the big driver is street maintenance, but we also identify projects from community councils. There's a survey that starts, it may have either started or is starting very soon, and that will be available to the community councils through mid-June, I believe. They can go online, submit their projects, and then we evaluate them and rank them with a set of criteria and rank them against all the other projects that we've identified, and we program them into our CIP list. Our funding primarily right now is municipal bonds. In the past, we got quite a bit of funding from state grants. We occasionally are able to access federal grants through the AMATS program in partnership with ADOT. State grants, of course, are down significantly since the economy has declined. So primarily bond funds. This year, voters passed a $43 million road bond fund, and we are ever appreciative of the support we get from agencies or from entities like the Chamber in promoting those packages. Without them, we would not be able to do any of the good work we try to do for the citizens. Next slide, please. I touched on it a little bit with the discussion about community councils, but our projects are really community driven, and we have some criteria that we use, some programs that we use to make sure we're investing where we think the community wants to invest. Of course, if a street's falling apart or if a drainage pipe has failed, that's a priority that may not be driven by these other guiding principles. But complete streets, our goal when we construct a street, Spenard Road between Benson and Hillcrest Drive is a good example that was completed recently. Complete streets have, they accommodate vehicle traffic, they accommodate bicycles, they accommodate pedestrians. They're designed to fit in with the community setting. If you've been on Spenard, you might be interested to take a minute to walk it. There's wide sidewalks with public art and things like that. Vision Zero is a commitment that the municipality adopted a few years ago to reduce traffic fatalities to zero or get as close as we possibly can. So that plays a major role in all of our design efforts. All of our designers, whether internal or A&E firms in the community, have that at the forefront when they're designing roads. And then I presume many of you are familiar with the CSS Context Sensitive Solutions process, where we fully involve the public through public meetings, community councils, surveys. We talk directly with local property owners who are affected by the project to get their input. We don't always meet everybody's desires, but we hear their desires and incorporate them to the best degree we can while keeping engineering and cost and efficiency and safety in mind. Next slide, please. 2019, just a very quick overview. We accomplished 18 mid-sized to major construction projects, about $17 million in construction spending. Some of those projects are ongoing and they'll wrap up this year. And we have about 60 projects in various phases of development, from early scoping through approaching the end of design and ready to go to construction. Next slide, please. I won't take the time to read this, but this will be available if folks want the presentation. This is a letter very similar to what DOT did about a month or 6 weeks ago, a letter to our construction community, designers, contractors, subcontractors, and developers in Anchorage, just letting them know our approach, as directed by the mayor on down, was to keep the public works side of the municipality open for business and move projects out as expeditiously as we can, recognizing the COVID-19 impacts to the construction community and our desire to do our part to alleviate that to the degree possible. Next slide, please. I'll touch on 3 or 4 of the big projects that are coming up this year. You may have heard about the Northern Lights Chester Creek culvert failure. So last year, the picture I showed a couple slides ago was the culvert, Chester Creek culvert at Providence Drive. That was, we found the failure late in the fall, and we did an expedited contract to replace that culvert. Last summer, we identified a similar failure on Northern Lights Boulevard. This is between UAA Drive and Lake Otis Parkway. So unfortunately for the traveling public, that section of road is going to be shut down for about 30 days in both directions, starting in mid to late June. We recognize it's a huge impact to the community, but the alternatives were less tenable, if one can believe that. The Chester Creek runs through 2 culverts there, and we have to reroute Chester Creek through a diversion channel and the only way we could keep traffic open, even in a single direction, would be to install a temporary bridge, and it rapidly gets very expensive. So we're going to have some detours. We're going to pay our contractor. We're going to entice our contractor to finish early with some substantial incentive clauses for every day they complete it early, and some penalty clauses for every day they run late. A fairly big project for us, about $7 million all in. Next slide, please. A large ongoing project downtown is replacing pretty much all of the signals and streetlights, signal poles and streetlights in the core downtown area, I would say from 3rd Avenue to 9th Avenue, and from L Street over to Campbell, probably. We're doing it in phases. We have one phase that was just awarded, and I apologize, it's 4th Avenue between maybe Cordova and Eagle. These streetlights and signal poles, some of them are approaching 40 years old. They've got some serious corrosion issues at the base. The wiring in many cases was not installed to maybe to any codes, or certainly not to the current codes, and we're seeing failures and high maintenance costs. So we're taking the approach of chipping away at this, I would say. I think there's $2 or $3 million in the 2020 bond. It's an $80 to $100 million project all in, but we're chipping away at it. There's also a separate phase that we're working on in conjunction with DOT using an AMATS federal funding source. So we're working our way through the signals and lights downtown. Next slide, please. Another big project, and I'm not going to go through all the projects, but another big project is Campbell Woods Subdivision. So kind of touching on 3 different types of projects: the emergency drainage project on Northern Lights, long-term maintenance repair project with the street lights and signals downtown, and then this is another area where this type of project is another area where we spend a lot of time and effort. Campbell Woods Subdivision is south of Dimond, west of Jewel Lake, kind of behind the Cars store there on the shore of Campbell Lake. It probably dates to the 80s, I would guess, and has really not been touched since then. There's a lot of groundwater in the area. There are homes that have water in the crawl space. The streets are in very poor condition. In some areas, it's almost impossible for a resident to drive from the street into their driveway because of the differential settlement between the pavement and the curb. So this is a 4 or 5 phase project, totaling probably $18 to $20 million. This is phase 2, which will reconstruct the lower portion of Edinburgh Drive along the bottom of your slide there. Phase 1 was last year. We installed a couple of storm drain outlets into Campbell Lake. That's the ultimate outfall for this drainage. So another big project. It is, I believe, out to bid right now, and this is a $3 or $4 million project for this year. And next slide, please. This is one of the more run-of-the-mill projects, Commercial Drive from Mountain View going west. We're just going to resurface it, so that's tearing up the asphalt, putting in new asphalt, and then as part of that, we will install or upgrade any ADA facilities, curb ramps and such along the road to make it more pedestrian friendly. Next slide, please. And I think this is the last specific project I'll just touch on real briefly. Reka Drive, east of Braga, just north of East High. Had 2 separate projects that have kind of been combined into one. One project was intended to provide some pedestrian facilities along that street for the students in the area. There are no sidewalks right now. And at the same time, we identified a storm drain in the area that was in pretty bad shape, runs east and west along Reka Drive. So we've combined them into a single project. We're hoping to get it out to bid late this fall. We've had some challenges with this one, but that's I think a $4 or $5 million project. Next slide, please. This is just a list of several of the other projects we're working on. I don't have specific numbers, but I could sure get them for folks if they want. I think that we are anticipating, PM&E is anticipating bidding between 20 and 30 or 25 to $35 million of work this year, depending on how quickly we're able to finish up some lingering designs. But our goal is to put as much work on the street as we can through the standard contracting process. Some of the bond funds also go to the traffic department and the street maintenance department, and of course some of those pay some of those funds are then used by contractors through street maintenance and traffic to do additional smaller projects around town. So that's just another way, both of effectively using the bond money, accomplishing needed work, and getting money into the community, into the construction community in a very difficult year for everybody, I think. Next slide, please. And I think this is essentially the last slide of projects I wanted to talk about. We have several projects that were on the bond this year. These 5 will go out to request for proposal to the architecture and engineering community. We should have them on the street soon, so there'll be an opportunity for firms to propose on these projects, and we'll have them in the design queue with construction slated either for 2021 or 2022, depending on the scope of the project. We also have several other projects that are currently in design, some of which will be finished up late this summer, others of which will finish up for funding, construction funding next year in 2021. And last slide, that is a picture of the recently completed concrete culvert under Providence Drive that replaced the failing culvert that I talked about earlier. This is very similar to what we'll see on Northern Lights once it is finished late this summer. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that folks might have, or if that's not a convenient way to do it, if folks want to email me or Chelsea, her contact info is on the screen there. Email questions and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Kent. That was a fabulous presentation. A lot of good information there. Also, a good reminder is that the Anchorage Chamber came out in support of the municipal. You talked about the municipal bonds, how important those were for you to get your projects done. But the Anchorage Chamber came out in full support of the municipal and of the school district bonds. So,
and I would say I want to say we really appreciate that. I think there was certainly concern, understandable concern that perhaps some of the bonds would not pass, and I think the voting community recognized the trade-offs and made what we think is the right choice. So we're excited, and we really appreciate the support of the chamber.
Great. Glad to do it. Also, another reminder for folks: if you do have questions, please go to the Q&A box and submit your questions. And at the end of the next presentation, Tasha will go over those questions. Hopefully, get all of your questions answered. So now at this time, again, thank you, Kent. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Diana Rotkis with the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. So Diana, it's all yours.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for having us. I do have in the room with me Shannon McCarthy, and she's going to be here just in case I get stumped with any of the questions. But I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is kind of the makeup of Central Region DOT. We have 70 airports, and those include 3 hub airports, which are Bethel, Dillingham, and Homer, 47 rural airports, which constitute about a $1 million contract maintenance annually. And then we have other airports that are either manned, unmanned, and that includes, the outcountry airports. We have 4,600 lane miles of roads. We have the Whittier Tunnel, which is 2.5 miles. And then, of course, located, even though it is not a Central Region facility, Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. Our focus is on mobility. We are totally here to move Alaskans around the state as efficiently and safely as possible. Our regional model, which the regions do somewhat work differently, but our regional model has us using consultants, I think right now at like 76%, but it kind of varies between 70 and 80%, and that's on the design side. And then 50% of our construction services are also outsourced using consultants. And I'm sure that Kent can say the same thing. Since 2006, we have started experiencing our higher rate of turnover, 3 to 5 years, as well as 10 to 15% vacancy rates. And so we don't know if that's going to change as part of COVID-19, but it will be an interesting study. But our concern, of course, is keeping core competencies within the department to for the design consultant and construction. And that is actually required by the Federal Highways Administration. So the Alaska Statewide Transportation Improvement Program is the state's 4-year program for transportation system preservation and development. It includes interstate, state, and some local highways, bridges, ferries, and public transportation, but does not include airports or non-ferry related ports and harbors. We've had a challenging few years with disasters. And so obviously everyone is really familiar with the earthquake. However, down in the peninsula, we've seen a lot of flooding. We continue to see erosion along rivers. And all of those have to share resources with our regular program. For the earthquake, we did bring on an extra team that has been their sole function since December of 2018, is that they have worked not only through the emergency repairs, but are now focused on working on doing the permanent repairs. And that also includes one site in Anchorage and one large site in the Mat-Su Valley. Our maintenance and operations group has, once again, in this fiscal year, they had to absorb another $700,000 in cuts due to the lost revenue or unrealized revenue and motor fuel tax. We realize that in the coming years that may also be an issue. And then the Federal Transportation Act is in its final year of authorization. So what that means for us is that I'm sure everybody's familiar with continuing resolutions, and that's typically what we're going to see. But what that does is it limits sometimes the available immediate cash that we have coming in from our federal partners. And then, you know, we continually, as I stated before, floods, fires, bridge strikes, those all present challenges as we're trying to go about doing our regular jobs. So increased construction costs limit what we can do on a given highway project. And some of those increased costs come about because we didn't think, or we did not know 30, 40, 50 years ago that Wasilla or the Mat-Su Valley would grow the way it did. And so some of the infrastructure has to change as we go in there and we make the Parks Highway wider, or we work with KGB Road to make it safer. And so all of those things result in increased cost to the project. We also have utility costs, which can sometimes be very extreme. KGB is a good one, but we are the only state that, and I apologize, we are the only state that permits utilities in highway rights of way, and utility relocates adds millions of dollars to some of our major projects. NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, responsibilities that we took on in 2017, that also added not only time, but cost to our projects. All right. And so I'm sure that if any of you got out this weekend, you got a chance to see some of our projects starting up. So on the Seward Highway, we have 3, and then we have 2 more projects that are north of Gridwood. So I'll just talk about those individually. So we have Seward Highway Dimond to milepost 114, and that is awarded to, it's a $9.5 million contract that is being done by Granite. It is a 1-year project, so it's a short-term one. And so beginning today, the crews will be working on the Seward Highway between the milepost, which is after the turnoff to the Chugach State Park headquarters, and the Diamond Boulevard interchange. And drivers, so the most immediate thing will be aware of nightly intermittent lane closures. And then we have the Seward Highway milepost 104 to 114 rockfall mitigation. You probably saw in March that we did have a construction team out there that took care of 2 emergency sites that we had that Federal Highways agreed were probably from the earthquake in 2018. And so we were able to get emergency money to get out there and work on those 2 sites. So now what we're going to do is we're going to address the larger number of sites that in between those mileposts, and this is expected to last 2 to 3 years. They will be out there in the coming month doing full assessments as to how we will proceed with some of that work. But that is, so milepost 104 is the Indian Valley National Historic Site, in case you like those big visualizations. But we will have, there will be intermittent lane closures as they do that. Then we have Seward Highway milepost 100 to 105. If anyone went down to Seward or Homer this weekend, that was probably the one that you most noticed. That is a $28.3 million project, and that is being done by mass excavation. We will be replacing Indian Creek Bridge, improving trails, and providing separation between motorized and non-motorized users. So we're going to have turn lanes in there and intersection improvements and passing lanes. And in case you were part of the group, and it was my experience this weekend, I came back from down south it was about 4:30, and I was in a very long line of traffic driving 5 miles an hour. And we are going to be reassessing that, how the transitions from the gravel to the remaining blacktop are working. We do realize that it's going very slowly. However, if there was a large number of folks that were hauling trailers and boats, and for them, those transitions, they had to slow way down, which probably slowed down general traffic, but we will be looking at that. And then we have the Glen Highway Capacity Improvement Project, and that is approximately $50 million project, and that one is being worked by Kiewit. This project will add additional southbound lanes between Artillery Road and Highland Drive interchanges, and will allow for the possibility of a future high occupancy vehicle lane. It will realign the highway to improve the southbound highway grade, and construct a new southbound bridge over Eagle River with a 4-lane capacity. And that is now in its full change, and so we do have all of the traffic on the northbound bridge. And so we decided to have a little bit of fun with this particular project. And so if you got to see the branding for this one, we called it Carzilla. And our goal was to reach early, and have everyone just be ready for the project and what was going to happen, and also realize that, while it's going to be inconvenient for a while, it is going to make a huge difference in the safety and capacity of that road. We also have some permanent earthquake repairs that will be happening. Our original goal was to complete all permanent earthquake repairs by 2020. We did not, unfortunately, just to the vast amount that we had. We originally had over 220 sites identified. We were able to pare that down, and a lot of them were very simple fixes like crack fixes. And so now we are in the process of going back out and looking to see what we're going to have to do to permanently repair some of the sites. And so the one you're looking at, that is the Glen and Parks exchange there, and that one will require a permanent fix, as well as the Minnesota on-ramp. And then there is, we have a Lake Otis project that we'll be doing for the Muni, and some projects out in the Valley. And so you'll see those over the next, between this summer and the summer of 2022, and then we hope to have those wrapped up. So for this year, we're going to have about $29 million worth of permanent repairs, and about $30 million between 2021 and 2022. And then, of course, we do have our Anchorage projects, and those we're working through AMATs, and also we have a Fireweed Lane pavement preservation project that will be out there in June of 2020. And so that is all I have. Back to you, Bruce.
Oh, thank you, Dinah. And what an understatement. That's all you have. That's a tremendous amount of work ahead of you. And also thank you for a great presentation. Before I turn it over to Tasha to work through the questions, I have a question. It's unfortunate, but it seems like the timing is beneficial for construction because we're going to see less traffic on the Seward Highway. And you have a lot of projects, you know, on the Seward Highway en route to the peninsula. Do you see some of those projects being completed earlier than planned because of having considerably less traffic?
Not at this time. We've discussed that, but if this weekend is anything to compare with, we saw traffic equal to July on the Seward Highway. And I was in Homer, and I can tell you that 3/4 of the campgrounds were full. It was an amazing amount of in-state travelers down there.
Yeah, you know, we've been cooped up for a while, so we're anxious to get out, but maybe that's a good indication for in-state travel. There'll be more of that, but okay, Tasha, I will turn it to you to go through any questions that have come in.
Okay, I believe we still have Kent on the line as well. So if you have questions for either Kent or Diana or even Laura, she's still here, type it into the question and answer box. Don't see any questions coming in, so we will be emailing the slides to everyone. We did have some technical difficulties there in the beginning, so we'll make sure and get those out to you.
Okay, well, again, thank you very much for two fantastic presentations. It's always good to see what we have planned ahead of us, and I think especially now it's good to see people at work on these particular projects and such. So again, Diana and Kent, thank you so much for these great presentations and for your time, and also to our members that participated. We had about 55 participants in today's virtual Make It Monday forum. So again, thank you, and please let us know how else the Anchorage Chamber can be supporting your efforts. Stay tuned, go to our Anchorage Chamber website for general information, and go to our COVID-19 resource page. We have staff working on that to keep it updated literally by the hour. So again, folks, have a great week, and thanks for joining us.